Marvel built an empire on calculated risks. They bet on Robert Downey Jr. when nobody wanted him. They bet on a talking raccoon. They bet on a kid from Kingston upon Thames who could barely drive when he first put on the suit. And for years, every single one of those bets paid off in ways that rewrote the rules of Hollywood. But right now, behind the polished press releases and carefully timed trailer drops, something is fracturing. A contractual dispute so financially dangerous that it has reportedly forced Marvel's top executives to start drawing up contingency plans they never wanted to touch. Plans that involve reboots, replacement strategies, and a fundamental restructuring of the universe they spent 15 years building. And it all comes back to one name: Tom Holland. What's unfolding between Holland's team, Sony Pictures, and Marvel Studios is a power struggle with billions of dollars on the line, and the outcome will determine whether the MCU survives its next chapter intact or splinters into something unrecognizable. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to 2015. Marvel was riding high off the Avengers, but they had a problem. Spider-Man, arguably the most iconic superhero in comic book history, was trapped at Sony. While Iron Man and Captain America were reshaping pop culture, Peter Parker was stuck in a separate universe, making films that were growing increasingly disconnected from everything Marvel had built. Then came the deal that changed everything. Marvel and Sony struck an unprecedented profit-sharing, creative collaboration arrangement that brought Spider-Man into the MCU while keeping him technically under Sony's roof. Two competing studios agreeing to share their most valuable asset in ways that had never been done before at that scale. Tom Holland was announced as the new Peter Parker shortly after, 20 years old, largely unknown, and about to step into one of the most scrutinized roles in modern cinema. The contract he signed reflected his status at the time, favorable to the studios, locking him into multiple appearances across solo films and ensemble Avengers projects, with compensation that was modest compared to what the franchise would eventually generate. For a while, nobody questioned it. The films made billions, Holland became a genuine global star. But underneath the surface, pressure was building that nobody outside a handful of boardrooms fully understood. The thing about contracts in Hollywood, they're written for the world as it exists when you sign them, not the world as it becomes. And the world Tom Holland now occupies is radically different from the one he entered in 2015. Spider-Man: No Way Home grossed nearly $2 billion globally, making it one of the highest-earning films in Sony's entire history. The leverage that once sat comfortably with the studios has quietly, steadily shifted. What's being reported now is that Holland's team entered renegotiations with a fundamentally different posture than his early career. The conversations aren't simply about money. They're about scheduling, creative input, and something less tangible, but arguably more important: the right to breathe. Holland has spoken publicly about the psychological toll of playing Spider-Man, the relentless press cycles, the physical demands, the feeling of being permanently attached to a character who consumes every professional conversation he has. His team reportedly pushed back hard on how many Avengers ensemble appearances he'd be obligated to make. Marvel wanted maximum availability. Holland wanted something closer to what Robert Downey Jr. eventually achieved, a film-by-film arrangement that gave him genuine agency over his future. That gap between what Marvel wanted and what Holland's team demanded is where the tension lives. And that tension has consequences that ripple far beyond one actor's contract. Spider-Man films under the Sony-Marvel arrangement have collectively generated well over $4 billion in global box office revenue. Brand New Day, the fourth solo Spider-Man film scheduled for July 2026, is already embedded in Marvel's release strategy in ways that make it nearly impossible to remove without causing serious damage. It's a connective thread between multiple projects, including Avengers: Doomsday, which was confirmed to feature Holland's Peter Parker. If Holland walks, Marvel doesn't just lose a popular character, they lose the audience infrastructure Spider-Man built. Casual viewers, the non-comic readers who make up the majority of blockbuster audiences, have specific emotional investments in Holland's version of Peter Parker. Replacing him isn't like recasting a minor character. It's closer to trying to rebuild a load-bearing wall while the house is still standing. Sony has its own expectations built around Holland's continued involvement. Disney has quarterly earnings targets that factor in franchise performance, and somewhere in the middle of those competing corporate interests sits a young man from England negotiating the terms of his professional future. Both sides know the math. That's precisely why these negotiations have been, by multiple accounts, extraordinarily difficult.
Here's where the story gets genuinely fascinating. Embedded in the most successful Spider-Man film ever made is what appears to be a deliberate escape hatch, one that Marvel may now be extremely grateful they included. No Way Home ends with Doctor Strange's memory spell removing Peter Parker from the social fabric of the universe entirely. MJ doesn't remember him, Ned doesn't remember him, Happy Hogan doesn't remember him. The Avenger who helped save half the universe is reduced to a complete unknown, alone in a studio apartment, starting from zero. The official narrative was that this represented a fresh creative chapter, and that's true, but it also, conveniently, provides Marvel with exactly the separation mechanism they'd need if Holland's involvement becomes untenable. A Peter Parker in total narrative isolation can be gradually transitioned out of the larger Avengers structure. His absence from future ensemble films becomes explainable within the story itself. His potential departure becomes a story beat rather than a continuity catastrophe. The multiverse framework adds another layer. If Peter Parker ultimately shifts back into a Sony-controlled universe, the multiverse logic provides the justification. He's not gone, he's just in a different branch of reality. Clean, coherent, and face-saving for both studios. Despite everything, Tom Holland is confirmed as of April 2026 to appear in both Avengers Doomsday and Brand New Day. Spider-Man isn't gone. The MCU hasn't formally fractured. What the current resolution suggests is that both sides pulled back from a genuinely damaging standoff and found enough common ground to keep the machine moving, for now. Holland gets his film-by-film leverage, or something close to it. Marvel gets their Spider-Man for the projects that need him most. Sony gets the box office performance their financial planning depends on. Everyone walks away with something. But calling this a resolution misreads what's actually happened. The underlying tensions haven't been resolved, they've been deferred. The moment Brand New Day wraps and everyone sits back down to figure out what comes next, this conversation starts again. Except now, every other major MCU actor has watched what Holland's team accomplished and is drawing their own conclusions. What this situation has revealed is that the age of the compliant superhero actor is over. Holland didn't invent this shift. Downey established the template. Scarlett Johansson's lawsuit against Disney accelerated the conversation, and Holland's renegotiation has now pushed it to a point where the entire structure of how Marvel contracts its talent is under genuine pressure. The real question isn't whether Spider-Man survives this particular dispute. He almost certainly does in the short term. The question is what Marvel looks like in 5 years, when every star on their roster has decided they want the same terms. The studio that rewrote Hollywood's rules once will have to rewrite them again, this time without the advantage of being the only ones who know how the game is played. The era of the sure thing in superhero cinema is quietly, irreversibly ending. and it starts with a contract dispute that most people still don't fully understand.